what I really loved about this song is that it's thrashy and it's garage rock, and it's got really, once they actually get to the vocals, like a really kind of catchy, haunting lyric, but it's packaged in this really artful psychedelic jam band texture.
It is time.
So we just listened to the song Deal. And then also coincidentally is that in 1972, Warner Brothers Records offered the Grateful Dead the opportunity to cut their own solo records. And so Garcia released a solo effort that he played almost all the instrumental parts, but Bill Kreutzmann played the percussion and drums in that. And so Bill Kreutzmann had a book written about him called Deal, which is the name of the song that we're listening to. And it was written by a guy named Benji Eisen. So, Mike, how did you and Benji Eisen first meet? Do you remember the time when you guys first got together?
I think we first met in the late 90s through the Fish scene. I, of course, knew who he was because he had this thing called Benji's Digest, where he would email around, the kind of the highlights from what was going on in Rec Music Fish back in the day, and he'd keep track of set lists and whatnot. But the first time we really worked together on something was 2005. We did a Disco Biscuits cover story together for Relics, and we really had a good rapport and had some really great late night chats in between working on the feature. And then we actually had a podcast in 2005, which was kind of like the BC era of podcasting. It was very, very, very granola and grassroots. We did that for 5 or 6 years until Relic started doing a little bit more professional studio stuff, which kind of eventually evolved into the video sessions we do in our studio. And as you mentioned before, of course, Benji wrote that amazing book with Bill, and has been managing some great acts, including Bill and the Kids.
Nice. Oh, definitely. And we had him on the show. It was so lovely to listen to music together with him. And we actually asked Benji to suggest a song for you to listen to, Mike. So he actually suggested a song by Broken Social Scene. So do you know about that artist?
Oh, I do. The collective of artists, if you will.
Yeah. So
also a band that Benji and I listened to a lot together back when we did this podcast, especially.
Do you remember how you first heard of Broken Social Scene? Was it Benji who introduced them to you?
I don't think that he introduced me to them, but we definitely had a lot of geeky conversations about them. This was again 2005, 2006 as well, and they were kind of coming through the ranks, playing. They're a Canadian band, but they were playing a lot of the indie rock clubs in New York. So we went to go see them a few times. And of course, they ended up kind of having a second life on the festival scene, and they continued to tour and record music, even though various members of the collective have released solo albums and gone on to form different projects.
Yeah, definitely. And so Benji actually has some remarks for you. He said that Mike Greenhaus and I got our start together doing our first cover story together as co-writers, and then launched into a podcast together called Cold Turkey, which we think was the first music podcast ever. So cool. He said that we continue to keep in touch regularly. I had him as a guest on Undermine last season, and Undermine is the podcast that Benji's currently producing. He says that Mike will have some fun thoughts on this song by Broken Social Scene for sure. And then another remark about this song is that in 2003, this album won the Juno Award for Best Alternative Album of the Year. So we're listening to Broken Social Scene from the 2002 album You Forgot It in People. We're listening to KC Accidental right here on Galaxy Jams Reacts. Hell yeah, dude.
Nice. I'm glad that Benji and I both remember that story of how we met and working together. Just saying, it would have been embarrassing for both of us.
Right.
Here's totally different answers.
You guys got your stories straight. straight out the gate. Oh my God, there was like impossible to find a spot that I could stop that because the whole entire thing was so awesome. Like I absolutely loved it. Lucy, what did you think?
So, lots of thoughts. Well, first of all, Mike, I was listening to your playlist on Spotify earlier today, and I loved it. I've been thinking this might be just like the theme of everything I talk about today, but I feel like I like sold myself out saying I don't listen to a lot of alt rock, but I'll probably start doing that more because I feel like there's so much of an appreciation for the instrumentation.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just love how you can start listening to a song and it's like a minute in before there even any lyrics or singing, and you can kind of just really be introduced to like the band as a whole and every instrument and begin to appreciate the musicianship there. I think it's really, really cool.
Yeah. What about you, Kai?
Yeah, so I have also a lot of thoughts on it as well. I love the tension of this song, even from like the get-go. It's just it's a ton of risers and texture, just kind of going up, going up, going up. And it's funny because it kind of like subsides for a second, and then something else comes in, like those violins just start building up that rising tension again. But something that was that stood out to me is it's just a very formulaic song. It's not like a verse chorus kind of thing. There weren't even lyrics in the very beginning. It took a little while, just like you said, Lucy, where the vocals broke in a little afterwards. I thought that was really cool, but I'm already feeling like tension from listening to it in a good way, and I want to see where it goes.
Yeah, and it really reminds me of like a thrashy garage rock band mixed with like Midwestern like emo pop, but they package it in like a psychedelic rock type of sheen to it.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of Tame Impala, especially at the beginning, like the way that the instrumentation is. And I've actually never heard of this band. Have you ever heard of this band, guys?
This band, no.
You know, it's wild. I have actually heard of them.
Oh, really?
Probably, I know, like the one person who's admitting I don't listen to rock. No, because my dad is a big alt rock guy. So I've heard the name before, and I think it's cool. Like the sound of the song sounds like the name of the band. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it sounds like this really sort of like almost adolescent like anxiety.
Yeah, like coming of age almost.
Yeah.
That is what I'm getting from it.
Yeah.
Mike, when you first heard this song, how did you feel when you first heard it, like the very first time?
I mean, I think to echo what you guys said, I always like this song because it kind of feels like it's beginning mid jam with the drum and kind of those ascending and descending instrumental passages, and also to kind of continue with the theme you guys were saying. What I really loved about this song is that it's thrashy and it's garage rock, and it's got really, once they actually get to the vocals, like a really kind of catchy, haunting lyric. But it's packaged in this really artful psychedelic jam band texture, which, especially when this album came out, was definitely something that was not in vogue. This is before Tame Impala and a lot of the other bands. They kind of have done such a great job of mixing psychedelic experimental music with pop music. So they were really one of the bands at the forefront of it at the time that they were first, recording, releasing music, as well as performing. When they do play live, it does channel kind of that psychedelic jam band vibes even more.
Right. And I think it's like the drums that like gives it that, those like snappy, fast rhythms, and especially like going into those like crazy buildups that this guy's going into. And it's like different. Like I feel like I've heard a lot of music that sounds like this, but the drums are like a lot different and not carrying the song, the same way as they do.
Yeah, like there's anxiety.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No, sorry.
No, that's exactly what I'm feeling too.
Yeah.
Anxiety, like the rising. And also, Mike, I was going to ask you about this too. Mike in the studio, the drums kept changing. Like it was just like like it would slow down, and then it would just have the da 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 again. And I noticed that we all kind of like changed our head bobs.
It's like it reminds me, like when you're listening to like your typical groove-based jam band, right? They're on a slow, steady mountain going up and up and up. And what this band's doing is essentially jumping, like leapfrogging from like step 1 to step 3 to step 5, right? And it's the drummer's paving the way to do that, which is really cool. And Ford Snow there in the chat says that it's epic and it's got a great balance of styles. This whole album is fire. Very, very cool. Why don't we finish this great one out? Dude, it kind of reminds me of like Lotus.
Yeah. For people who maybe had never heard of this album or this band before, but are coming from more of the jam band scene, I would say two things. One, there is a version of another song from Broken System that Trey covered a few years ago when he was playing in Toronto. And though I haven't heard it, last fall Andrew Barr from the Slip did some shows subbing for Broken Social Team's drummer, playing this song as well as a bunch of other great songs. So I personally have not been able to track that down, but if there's recordings there, I'm sure he did a great job with some of those drum changes.
Yeah, that's great. I really like that a lot more than I thought I would. Really, it was dope. Like straight out the gate, they were swinging. I liked how the drummer it was like they were like destroying everything all the time. And I like that. I like when a band like has balls and has oomph and is like, aggression. But, it doesn't always have to be like heavy metal to get there. Right. Yeah. And so it's cool when a band can be psychedelic, but not just in like the soft, flowery, hippy dippy way, but can be in like a,
fierce.
Exactly.
They were definitely psychedelic in a really intense mushroom trip kind of way.
Yeah. Like a really badass way.
Yeah. You were just like waves down.
They're not like standing in a circle holding hands. Kind of psychedelic.
For sure.
Yeah. Wait, I have one question. I hope it's not a stupid question, you guys. Do they not play with a click when they record?
It didn't
is
sound
that
like
kind of
it.
the purpose of like a jam band? Because it felt like it was changing tempos.
I think they did that because a lot of bands, they focus on making all their albums so quantized and so on a grid, and it's like that's one thing I'll notice about this band too, is that's why I kind of said it was like a garage band, because it sounded like they just got in the studio, recorded it all together in one take or whatever, you know what I mean, and that was the take they used, as opposed to like putting it all on a grid and then like layering it and things like that, which a lot of bands tend to do.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm into it.
Yeah, very, very good. Well, thank you so much, Benji Eisen, for that great pick. We really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Hi, this is Mike with Galaxy Jams Reacts. We hope that you enjoyed that React video. Be sure to check out the links below of when we're going to be live streaming our next show, and also how to watch full episodes. Please hit that subscribe button. Every single one helps.